I'm a liar. I lied. I said I would be better at making videos, but I'm not. I'm terrible at it. But hey, I'm living life. Life is great right now. The rocks will still be here when I get back. And here I am, back again, to tell you about some very interesting rocks. Many eons ago now, it seems, I took a little trip to Death Valley to see the super bloom, and it was amazing. I've never seen anything like it, especially not in the desert. It was absolutely incredible. I was so amazed that I was like, I have to go back again. And I went back the next weekend with some girlfriends, and when we got to the spot, I was a bit disappointed. All the flowers that were there were pretty much all dead, and I was very worried about what we would find deeper in Death Valley. But it only got better as we got closer to Badwater Basin. And of course, while I was in Death Valley, I had to subject my friends to some unsolicited geology talks. They let me bore them to death for at least 15 minutes about what is called the Charlie Brown Outcrop, which is I don't know if it's a world famous outcrop, but it's a famous outcrop in the geological community. So famous, in fact, we ran into about 20 other geology students there. Hello, right now I am at the Charlie Brown Outcrop outside of Death Valley National Park. And you might see this huge black seam of something. We're gonna figure out what that is. So a long time ago, tens of millions to hundreds of millions of years ago, in Death Valley, you have a lot of volcanoes. And why do we have volcanoes in Death Valley? Well, a long time ago, an oceanic plate known as the Farallon Plate started a collision course for the North American plate. Oceanic crust is denser than continental crust, so when the two met, the Farallon Plate subducted. As the plates slowly moved in relation to each other, compressional forces gradually folded, warped, and fractured the brittle crust. These forces also caused widespread uplift where the shallow sea slowly became a terrestrial landmass. This widespread rock deformation and faulting occurred through most of the Mesozoic era, also known as the Age of the Dinosaurs, causing many fractures and faults in the crust. An important thing to know is that as the Farallon Plate subducted into the mantle, it melted. This melted material, known as magma, then rose through the mantle. All of the fractures and faults in the crust created by compressional forces allowed magma from the mantle to rise and form chains of volcanoes as the Farallon Plate continued to move. This is the event that formed the modern-day Sierra Nevadas and many of the volcanoes in Death Valley. Volcanoes first appeared to the northeast in Nevada and blanketed the Death Valley region with numerous layers of ash and cinders. Over time, the center of volcanic activity moved progressively westward, producing a chain of volcanoes from Furnace Creek to Shoshone. This volcanic period occurred between 65 to 2 million years ago, long after the Farallon Plate fully disappeared under the North American Plate 20 million years ago. You have ash spewing everywhere and pyroclastic flows. So around 20 million years ago, this was deposited. So you have a bunch of ash and thick ash, and that is weighing itself down. Basically, it's really hot and it's fusing together. It's welding, creating what's called a welded tuff, or ignimbrite to be specific. And you have two layers of this welded tuff. You have welded tuff on the bottom here and welded tuff on the top. Very loud motorcycles. So you have welded tuff on the bottom and welded tuff on the top. And why is that? Well, when the ash was getting deposited, it was a little bit, the stuff on the bottom, it was a bit cooler because it's in contact with the cooler rock at the surface. And the rock at the top, it was also a little bit cooler because it's interacting with the cooler air. But the stuff in the center, that was still super, super hot. The stuff in the middle, it basically re-melted. And then as it was cooling, it formed volcanic glass. So what's in the middle here is volcanic glass, which we also call vitropyre. Vitropyre? I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong. As this rock was forming, gases were escaping, causing these little vesicles. So in the rock, you'll see all of these little holes and vesicles. You know, over the years, over many, many, many years, hydrothermal fluids were infiltrating in the rock into these vesicles and deposited silica. So you'll see these like white little pockets of crystals all throughout the rock. So if you look over here, you'll see a fault right here, this like diagonal fault, and then you'll see another fault. See this like orangish layer of rock, and then you have another orangish layer where the fault block kind of like moved. What we see right here is evidence of the powerful extensional forces that began to occur around 3 million years ago in Death Valley as the Basin and Range began to form. As plates diverged, fault blocks slipped past one another, causing this normal fault, which is when the hanging wall moves down in relation to the footwall. Now, if you know anything about geology, you know that the rock layers were deposited before this fault. In this case, it was probably around 20 million years ago, same as our welded tuff. Here you can see what appears to be a conglomerate. A conglomerate is a coarse-grained sedimentary rock that consists of rounded pieces of gravel that's cemented together by clay and silt. It normally forms in environments like riverbeds or at the base of mountain ranges in alluvial fans. And knowing that gives you a better picture of what this exact spot looked like about 20 million years ago. Since this conglomerate is surrounded by ash and other volcanics, you might assume that its origin is also volcanic, and you'd be correct. As distant volcanoes were spewing ash, they were also spewing pumice shards, which are the round to semi-angular pieces that you see in the conglomerate. Those pieces of pumice and other volcanic debris landed in lake beds and valley bottoms to eventually cement together and form the amalgamation that we see before us. Above this layer are ash beds, and the different colors are caused by the oxidation of metals, mostly iron. And there you have it, the Charlie Brown Outcrop in all of its crunchy, delicious glory. Maybe not delicious, but I definitely didn't taste the rock, so who knows. Okay, I think that's good.